Hello, my name is John Fisher and welcome to my introductory video on the jump shot. Before we go to a pool table and actually start trying to jump over object balls, there are four basic ideas that I would like to discuss. The first is that the cue ball has to be forced into the cloth. The second is that everything has to be lined up. The third is that the angle in equals the angle out. And the fourth is to develop and utilize your short stroke. So let me go over those principles one by one. First, the cue ball has to be forced into the cloth. Back before most of us knew the rules of the game, we tried to execute a jump shot by digging under the ball and sending it into the air with our stick. And then we were informed that that is illegal. But when we go and try and execute a legal jump shot, some of us still have this tendency to want to assist the cue ball leaving the surface by doing a little scoop. This really does nothing for your jumping ability other than diminish your accuracy and power. The best way to take care of this problem is to fix deeply in your mind the image of the cue ball being driven into the cloth and very simply trusting the physics will send it into the air. The second idea is that everything needs to be lined up, just like in any other pool shot. Your shoulder, elbow, and wrist all have to be aligned. It becomes problematic in the jump shot because most of us don't have a really good loose latissimus dorsi. That's the muscle located right here in between the hip and the shoulder. Most of us, when we go down for a jump shot, have the natural tendency to want to pull our elbow towards our bodies and out of line with our shoulder and hip. I think the best way to correct this problem, because obviously if you're not lined up, your stick has motions like this, which is of course undesirable. The best way to take care of that is to focus on technique, and that is pull your elbow directly back, and then once you're down in a stance, make sure that it is directly up in the air. Something like this. Don't have your elbow pulled towards your body. The third item is that the angle in equals the angle out. In other words, the angle of incidence roughly equals the angle of reflection, just on in any other kick or bank shot. So, if the tip of my stick has an angle of incidence that is very shallow, the cue ball will be sent off the cloth at an angle that is very shallow. If my angle of incidence as far as the stick goes is a very much more steep angle, then the cue ball is going to leave the surface of the table at an angle that is very much more acute. The fourth and last item is to develop and utilize your short stroke. Most good pool players have three distinctly different types of strokes. The first is their long stroke that they use usually when the cue ball and object ball are very far away from each other and they're trying to be very accurate. The second is their medium stroke when the table is fairly easy to run and they're just trying to maintain their inner rhythm. And their short stroke that they utilize when usually the cue ball and object ball are very close to one another, and if they used a long or medium stroke, they would hit the cue ball twice, resulting in a foul. Some very good jumpers have the imagery of their stick being thrown at the cue ball. I don't think that's a very good idea or image to have, because I think it's a really wild and woolly way of wielding a cue, but whatever works for you is always, of course, best. All I can tell you is how I do it. I address the cue ball just like in any other shot. I take a couple of warm-up strokes and I use my very forceful short stroke. So, in summary, the four basic ideas in the jump shot are that the cue ball needs to be forced or driven into the cloth without any scooping motion. 2, your elbow, wrist, and shoulder all need to be lined up, just like in any other pool shot. And 3, the angle in equals the angle out, or the angle of incidence roughly equals the angle of reflection. And 4 is to develop and utilize your short stroke. And I don't advocate using any throwing motion. I really do recommend getting good with your jump cue. If you don't have a jump cue, You can go and buy one for $200 or $300 that is really very, very nice. These sticks are going on eBay used for well under $100, or if you don't have any money, you can go to your local billiard supply store or pool hall and ask for one of their reject house cues and saw off the butt. But whatever you do, I really do recommend getting in a lot of practice. Not only are good jumpers very much more difficult to safe, but for a great number of pool players are very intimidating, because even some of the really good local pool players haven't really taken the time to harness this skill. Thank you very much for watching. Now let's get to the pool table and start trying to jump over some object balls.